What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. This is Eric, and today I'll be talking about the third movie in what should have been a trilogy, but obviously they made a fourth and now a fifth, which I'll be reviewing on Friday. But today we're talking about Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, which came out in 1989. At that time, I had watched Temple of Doom about 50 times. I'd watched Raiders of the Lost Ark maybe 20, so I was a huge fan of the franchise, and this one at first didn't quite blow me away like the first two did, I'll admit, but I was 9 at the time. I still knew it was really good, really funny, and it brought more emotion and humanity to the character of Indiana Jones. Having just watched it again for this review, I can say that this movie has to be the funniest of the three, or at least it gets the hardest laughs more often, which is hard to do because Temple of Doom is hilarious, and this one certainly backs off a little bit from some of the violence and the horror, and it's more of a personal story, a little bit more grounded than Temple of Doom, and definitely more reminiscent of a sequel to Raiders of the Lost Ark rather than a sequel to Doom. But I'm so glad we also got Temple of Doom, because this movie really makes a perfect trilogy. You have the amazing, action-packed, adventure-filled Raiders, then the insane, horrifying, yet hilarious Temple of Doom, and now a more personal and dramatic story that's also full of laughs in The Last Crusade. And don't get me twisted, it's got some amazing action and adventure as well. This review is obviously going to have spoilers, so be warned, I'm sure you've already seen The Last Crusade. So here we go. Now, this one starts off with a flashback to the young Indiana Jones, played by River Phoenix, who is awesome, trying to get a crucifix, which he insists belongs in a museum. And Phoenix is absolutely awesome in the role. And there are a few explanations that we get for why Indiana Jones, like why he has the scar on his chin, why he's scared of snakes, which is kind of, I don't love those kind of things in a full-length prequel where it's just fan service, explanations, like, stop it. But for here, I think it's pretty cool. It's just a couple of little things, and it's like curiosity. Like, why is he scared of snakes? And then we really get curious because early in the film, the young Indy like tosses a snake aside. He's like, it's just a snake. And you're like, wait, hold up. I know that ain't a plot hole. So they're about to tell us why he's afraid of snakes. And sure enough, we find out. And it's an awesome little adventure to open the film, and also sets up his relationship with his father a little bit. Gives us a glance at the young Indiana Jones without trying to pull off a full-length prequel without Harrison Ford in his iconic role, as if any movie would ever try to do that. So we jump forward in time, and now Indiana Jones finds out about his father, who is missing in the search of the Holy Grail. So now he sets off to find his dad and maybe the Holy Grail as well. And he takes along his dad's diary, which has really important information to help in this quest. And it's a diary that the bad guys are going to be after. So a couple of his associates from the original movie are back, including Marcus Brody, who is really funny, a little bit bumbling, a little bit prone to mistakes, but he's not overly annoying, or he's not annoying at all. He's just funny, and it's a light touch, really important to the movie. And then there's also Elsa, who is the beautiful girl of the movie, but brings something different than the previous two. It's not the former love interest badass from the first, who we totally trust. It's not a girl who is just complaining all the time. She's a singer, and she's not trying to get involved in all this stuff like Willie in the second movie. She is more of a mysterious woman, a seductive woman who we don't really trust at all, and neither does Indiana Jones completely. So again, not really rehashing everything, but still it's the same tone, it's the same vibes, it's the same, it's a movie that the fans can love and respect without being pissed off because they went in a crazy new direction, but they still go in a new direction to give us a brand new story with brand new characters, and it just works completely. And the library scene is hilarious. This is where they are trying to get through the ground, where X marks the spot, which is intentionally a cliche because earlier Indiana Jones in his classroom was like, X never marks the spot. And he's like, X marks the spot. Okay, so that was intentional, but they're crushing the ground. And then the librarian is also stamping books. And every time he stamps the book, this huge sound happens. And he looks, what the freak? So that was the first real funny moment that I can remember. I'm sure there were more before that, but that was one of the early, really hilarious moments. So they get under the ground, rats everywhere. And these were bred for the film. So were the snakes and lions. Well, the lions weren't bred for the film, I don't think, but they are real lions, real snakes, real rats, no CGI crap. As if Hollywood would ever put the great Harrison Ford in a movie with a CGI animal. One of the funniest moments in the franchise has to be when Indiana Jones pretends to be an angry Scottish guy, and Harrison Ford is so good. It's hilarious because neither Indiana Jones or Harrison Ford are known for the ability to do accents and impersonations of someone else, and he's just so good. It's hilarious. I didn't know that Indiana Jones or Harrison Ford had that capability, but that makes it just that much funnier. You know, he's usually just this deep talking, you know, voice and hey kid, you know, what are we doing here? You know, he's just always like, that's just how Harrison Ford is. So I didn't even know he had that ability. So it was really funny to see him get into this wild Scottish character with this accent, and he nails it to the point that sometimes if I haven't watched this movie for a few years and I watch it, I forget. Like, I think they just introduced a new character. Takes me a few seconds to realize that's Harrison Ford, that's Indy. But the only moment that has to be funnier is when Hitler is signing autographs. And it's funny just then, just watching Hitler signing autographs, just that touch is hilarious. But they take it further when Hitler sees Indy with the diary that he wants so much, that the Nazis are trying to get. This is the whole thing. This is what they need, is that diary. Hitler grabs the diary. Indy has a look on his face like, oh God, game over, right? Game over, dude. We're screwed. He's got it. Hitler looks at the diary, takes his pen, signs his autograph, hands it back. Brilliant, straight up. Absolutely brilliant comedy right there. And obviously the Nazis are back in this movie just like they were in the first one. Indiana Jones' father is eventually found, played by, of course, Sean Connery. So we get Sean Connery and Harrison Ford teaming up. James Bond and Indiana Jones team up. Although the relationship between the father and the son is obviously not great, still hilarious. Sean Connery is so good. He's so funny. He's so awesome in this movie. But you can tell he doesn't really compliment his son on anything. He's not a very loving father. Not, they don't have the best relationship. He doesn't really show appreciation or support or, much love, really, honestly. So, but that sets up more hilarious moments. Like when they're tied up and the father, Henry, accidentally starts a fire. And he's like, and they're tied up, they're trying to get out. And he's like, oh, son, I have to tell you something. And he's like, don't get all sentimental on me now. And like, no, there's a fire. The whole place is about to burn down. Then later when they're flying and Henry is operating the weapon, accidentally shoots the tail off the plane. It turns around like, I'm sorry, son, they got us. We're hit. And then just one more really funny moment is when Indiana Jones falls off the cliff and the tank. This is towards the end, and obviously everyone thinks he's dead. So Henry thinks his son is dead, and he actually gets a little emotional, and he's like, I never got to tell him so many things, or something of that nature. Like, I just needed a few more seconds, like he just needed a few more seconds. He was almost ready to tell him how much he loved him and all these deep things, right? Turns out Indy's okay. He climbs up the cliff here on the other side. He walks up behind him, and for a moment he's like, "Oh, son, I thought I lost you." And then you think he's gonna say something that he so much wanted to say, and he didn't have the chance to. And it's just like, well done, let's go. What are you doing? Next thing. So it was just really funny, really well shot, timed perfectly. The timing of the comedy is so good in this movie. The jokes land at a extremely high percentage, more so than almost any movie I can think of. Most movies have some jokes land, some don't. More lately, almost no jokes land in recent movies, but there's so many that land here. The last one I'll talk about, and there's so much more than I have time to talk about, but when he's on like a plane or a blimp, I guess it's a blimp, and there are passengers, but Indiana Jones is dressed like either a pilot or someone who works with the airline, if you will, and he's checking tickets. He's pretending to check tickets. He's really trying to get to the bad guy, of course. Ticket! And people don't look too interested in showing their ticket. They're just like, whatever. Until he finds the bad guy, throws him out the window of the blimp. He falls, maybe to his death. People don't know. They're horrified. And they're all looking up like, oh my God. He's like, no ticket. And then everyone's like, ticket! This movie has to be the funniest in the franchise. I mean, very, very hilarious. And it's also nonstop adventure packed. You have the scene at the end where there's horses and there's tanks that are the big tank chase scene. So many close calls. It's actually thrilling, and you don't really know how things are going to wrap up. I mean, you don't figure they're going to kill off Indiana Jones, but it's a third movie in the trilogy. Obviously, we know now there's more. There's also some really serious conversations between him and his father, and just the development of the character and a deeper understanding of who he is what you get in this movie, along with everything else you expect in an Indiana Jones movie, and just amazing humor. It's so funny. It's so good. And you get some badass, horrifying moments too. They don't forget that. Like when the villain drinks from the wrong grail and ages about 1,000,000 years in 10 seconds. Horrific. You get the mutilated faces, you get skulls in here, you get all that stuff. But it has so much more in this movie. It's just great. The third act is thrilling. There are some awesome villains I haven't really talked about yet. Obviously, the girl does end up being a villain. There's a couple other crazy twists as well. And everything wraps up in a very, very fulfilling way. And it would have been a perfect trilogy if it remained a trilogy. Instead, we got Crystal Skull, which I'll have to review tomorrow. And then, of course, the new one that comes out on Thursday night, and I'll be reviewing that Friday. So this movie, though, let's just stick to the good stuff right now. 1989, it just got in that window of the 80s. Now, probably would have been good in the 90s, but 2000s, no, we're getting nothing but crap. But this movie is an absolute 100% masterpiece, as are all three of these first movies. And even though I personally may find a little bit more entertainment value in Temple of Doom, I just love the craziness of that movie. This one is so funny, it's touching, it's awesome in so many ways. And I don't know how I'm gonna rank these. It's gonna be really, really tough to rank these movies. But just know that this movie is a masterpiece. I love it, highly recommended, so good, so hilarious. Let me know what you guys think of The Last Crusade, and look forward to my next review of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and then the new film, Dial of Destiny, on Friday. I may have an out of the theater, probably will have an out of the theater review Thursday night. So you guys have a great day. Let me know what you think. My phone just went off. Sorry about that. That wasn't your phone. That was my phone, but I'm not gonna redo that. See ya.